I tell you what, I know this. Got a lot of guys with some big hearts. All I know is for 3 hours. For 3 hours or however long, maybe 4 hours, we're the best team in the country today. And it's offense, defense, and special teams. There's some guys like Darren McFadden, baby. I love you. Y'all better put him in the Heisman. You better put him up there. I'm tired of him being number 4.
We got that wood right here, baby.
Somebody better look at this guy's the best football player in the country, and his name's not being mentioned. Lou Holtz, Mark May, number 5. You better look at him a little closer. He's a football player.
This is former Coach Houston Nutt, and you're listening to The Morning Rush.
Hour number 3 of The Morning Rush. Want to welcome in the last Arkansas head coach to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. That is Mr. Houston Nutt. Coach, good morning. I appreciate you making some time for us on The Morning Rush.
Good morning.
Perfect. Good morning. Well, Coach, let's go back to that game in 2006. It was a back-and-forth game. I know Lee Tiffin had probably the worst game of not only his collegiate career, but his career playing football. How vivid can you remember everything that occurred in that game?
Are you talking about the last 2006 or 07?
2006, the last time the Arkansas Razorbacks beat the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah, playing Alabama, you always have a respect for Alabama, and for me, growing up, it was always, of course, Coach Bear Bryant and the tradition that he set. And then as you look at the athletes they had starting in 98, Sean Alexander, there was always, you look across the field, you knew there was talent. And so in 2006, you always know it's going to be a battle, and it just comes down to execution and who's going to take care of the ball. And then you mentioned the kicker for them. That helps. That always helps when they miss some chip shots. So we were fortunate right there. But it's always good. It always feels good to beat Alabama, and there's nothing like a celebrated locker room.
Coach, you got a chance to compete against Nick Saban the following year, got a chance to compete with him against LSU, also when you were the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. He gets so many accolades. He gets credit for a lot of things. Now that you get to step back and fully dissect, really from a television standpoint, what he does on a weekly, daily, monthly basis, what do you think stands out about Coach Saban that he doesn't necessarily get enough credit for?
He was the only coach to reach out to me when I got fired for the first time in my life at Ole Miss, and I got to spend 3 days down there watching firsthand. And I tell you, the thing that was just so impressive is just the organization and also the number of support people. He had everything. His blueprint and roadmap to championships is just phenomenal. And I'm talking about from nutrition to academics to weight room to on the field, nobody's standing, everybody's moving, and of course he has great talent. But the thing that's so impressive, stepping back when you watch Coach Saban, I've never seen a coach that wins a title, 24 hours later, he's in a living room, and it is foot to the pedal, full speed. And there's a focus, a laser focus of the next task at hand. Most coaches, when you win a championship, it's take a deep breath. Oh, yeah, we did it. And he does that for just a little bit, but much shorter than any other coach I've ever witnessed, where he's right back to work, right back on the focus. And, you watch his teams now, he's changed with times. And what I mean by that is back in the days, in the 70s, 80s, maybe even early 90, it was if you scored 24 points, you let your defense win the game. That was enough. Defense and special team. Or now, you look at his offense, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris. You had Jalen Waddle, which was just a take your breath away. Now they score 48, 50, 45, 44. Hard to keep up with them. And offensively, I'm talking about. And now their defense is coming on. I just think they're the most complete team. So just going back to answer your question, I just think the thoroughness of every phase of the program, there's only one voice. It's his voice, and it's full speed and total focus on task at hand.
Coach, it's Clay Henry. I
I think we're going to get into pregame motivational speeches, which yours are legendary, and we've got them on tape, so we know exactly what they are. But there's so many we don't have on tape. What was a Lou Holtz motivational speech? And you heard them, and then maybe somebody else that we wouldn't think about that had a knack for being able to bring a team to that magic level. Maybe Coach Sutton, you were around him too.
Yeah, Clay, the one thing that I'm so fortunate about, the fortunate victim of circumstances, it started with my father. My father was a tremendous coach for the Arkansas School for the Deaf that could communicate so well, and it took a special person to communicate to a deaf person. He was so good. So that was where it first started. Then it's Charles Ripley, Bernie Cox. And then Frank Broyles was very, very good, especially a recruiter in the living room. He coached the coaches. But the two names that come to mind, and you mentioned one of them, Lou Holtz and Jimmy Johnson. Lou Holtz was very fiery and held you accountable for everything. And I knew it as a player, but I learned even more when I was a grad assistant for him in 1983. Wow. And that's the first time that I truly learned that what you see on film is what you taught. Don't say it's an 18-year-old's fault. That's your teaching. And so when I left Coach Holtz, I felt like after hearing him, especially in the locker room, he could fire it up. And I remember the Orange Bowl. We're about a 33-point underdog to Barry Switzer and the Oklahoma Sooners. And, we were buttoned up tight in Miami, Oklahoma. We had pads on and practicing hard. And I remember in the papers in Miami, Barry Switzer and the guys, they had shorts on, shorts and helmets. They felt like they're going to have a nice time. But Lou Holtz, put that motivation on us with, we're going to get 3 turnovers. And I think we got 3 or 4 that night. And we're going to take care of the ball. And I don't think we didn't fumble. And we're going to block them, and we're going to shock the world. It's those type of things that made you believe when nobody else in the world thought you had a chance. And Jimmy Johnson was the same way, very enthusiastic, very passionate. He would take a team where they couldn't go by themselves. And Eddie Sutton and Pat Foster and Gene Cady, I think people forget, they were on the bench. Those are 2 great, to me, Hall of Fame coaches that I got to learn from. So you add all those up, and it's just a great. They're great teachers, and they cared about people. So they're just it was just a spectacular group.
Could you say too much in pregame that might slow down somebody like a Tony Bua? I mean, I would guess you had some players that didn't really need a pregame speech.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point, Clay. There's a lot of times, we didn't say very much sometimes in a pregame because it was in. It was felt like the work was in, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I would meet with the team on Thursday night just by myself, and it could be anything from, hey, look, we're not going to have penalties, and we're going to take away their best player, or we're going to protect the ball better. We're going to do all those little things, and then by game day, hey, they were already, those eyes were really laser focused on that opponent. You didn't say anything to Tony Bua or Kenny Hamlin or Kanoy Kennedy. Those guys were ready, so that's exactly right.
Coach Nutt, you were talking earlier about the blueprint or the way Coach Saban goes about his business and getting every detail of the program buttoned up. When you look at Sam Pittman and him getting his program off the ground and the foundation laid, what do you see here? Where do you see this program headed under Sam Pittman's leadership?
Yeah, I've never had the privilege to meet Coach Pittman, so just outside looking in, the one thing that I really admired was I love the way he just embraced Arkansas first and foremost. He embraced it, embraced the Razorbacks, and the players you could tell they knew it was genuine. And I think the one thing you got to know is you can't fool an 18 or 19-year-old. You may be able to fool some people outside, but in that locker room or in that team meeting or on the practice field, day in and day out, you can't fool them. They know what you're about, and so they believe, and you could tell they love Coach Pittman. and then you look at staff, and you look at how they play. And I always look at how hard a team plays. And when a team plays hard and they give effort, I'm talking about fanatical effort. I'm not talking about just going through the motion. I'm talking about truly fanatical effort. Because sometimes when you get to a school, they think they're going fast, and they have to be pushed or reminded that's unacceptable. You're playing for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and there's only one speed, and that speed is full throttle. And there's not a lazy step to be taken because your teammates and the people of Arkansas are counting on that. And so that's what I see just outside looking in. I saw a team that played hard. You look at Barry Odom creating turnovers. I love that when they got those interceptions, get the ball back to the offense, and play for 4 quarters.
Yeah. You mentioned Barry Odom there. I wanted to ask you about the defense next because you had a pretty fiery guy in Keith Burns that led the defense in your time at Fayetteville, and now you're watching Barry Odom try to really resurrect a defense that hasn't played well in the last few years, wasn't expected to do much. How surprised are you at the level that Barry Odom's been able to get this defense to play at times this year?
I was really surprised. When we do our preseason, we didn't know we was going to have football this summer, so we're doing meetings over a Zoom with CBS. And every time we got to Arkansas, when we talked about that, we do an SEC show, like we'll do one tonight, SEC show. Well, every time we got to SEC, whether it be Randy Cross or Aaron Taylor or Rick Neuheisel or whoever's on that show, Kevin Carter, who played at Florida, they all in the preseason picked Arkansas not to win a game, 10 conference games. And then you added Georgia, Florida, if you remember, to the 10-game schedule. Mm-hmm. All my colleagues says, well, it looks like Arkansas won't win a game again. They won't win a game. That schedule's too tough. And so they gave them no hope, gave them no chance. That's, again, an outsider looking in where you take Coach Pittman, who they didn't know, you take Coach Barry Odom, and you take this staff, and lo and behold, hey, they won 3. And when you look at it, probably could have won 5 or 6 and won the, questionable officiating, and then 1 or 2 ball just go a little bit different, including last Saturday. Hey, there could be more wins. So I think he's just done an outstanding job from where they started when they took over the team. When you haven't won an SEC game and people expect you to lose, man, that's tough now to turn that mindset.
We're talking with Houston Nutt here on the Morning Rush. Coach, we were mentioned a couple of your motivational speeches earlier, whether it was the Cotton Bowl against Texas, your first game in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium. A lot of people have heard or seen these speeches you gave thanks to KTV, and you kind of mentioned your process Thursday night and stuff. But I wonder, the ones you did give on Saturday, the ones prior to the game, were those rehearsed or were those just kind of off the cuff?
Well, not so much rehearsed, but I always knew going in the things that I wanted to emphasize. If it was, whether it be, the hustle or whether it be taking care of the ball or whatever we were emphasizing, whether it be taking away their great player and talking to the defense about let's keep everything in front. We know they're going to catch some ball, but when they catch it, they're going to get hit. Things like that. But as far as rehearsal and all that, no. It was you just try to be as natural as you can, and it wasn't that long. You don't really have that long, and really on game day, it's more important to me was Thursday night. I think if you ask the players what was the difference, it was the preparation, the work on Tuesday, Wednesday. After we got the game plan on Sunday, Monday, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, hard hat days, and then Thursday night was probably some of our best meetings because it's 48 hours prior to, where I really feel like I still had 100% attention. We're on that game day and you're getting taped and you're warming up and that sweat's already coming down that face and you're getting ready to go get in a battle to play in the best conference in America. Hey, sometimes you may not always be listed right there because it's like coming out of the game. I never will forget CBS would always tease me up when I first got there. Coach Nutt, we'd always have to tell your team, hey, look, you leave in 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Coach. You come out in 30 seconds. They tell you when to come out. I couldn't. I said, I don't think I can hold them. And they keep walking me forward. And I said, hey, guys, hang on a minute. We got to wait 30 seconds. that 30 seconds seemed like 3 minutes because those guys were in a fever pitch and they were ready to go. So they always tease me, Coach, you could never, be on time because you beat the time. They kept pushing you forward to get to the field.
It just seems like you're kind of reincarnating what happened back at the time, and all our listeners love hearing that. Coach, I was listening to your interview with David Basil 2 years ago at the Touchdown Club, and David asked you point blank, what would you say to this team prior to playing Alabama? So you mentioned you didn't really like rehearsing. You kind of like you had your set examples, you had what you were going to talk about. So I wonder this. We've had some fun this morning. People have called in, and no one's lived up to your billing. No one's lived up to kind of the speech you give. But I wonder, what would you say to this football team tonight? What would you say tomorrow morning prior? Could you give us a little old Coach Nutt for us this morning?
Yeah, I would. If I had a chance, I'd rather talk tonight. And not the day of the game because of what we're talking about. But tonight is real simple because it's, we've had a good week. But here's what's great. We get to play the greatest game in the world. During the 2020 has been one of the toughest times, and we didn't even know if we're going to play. We get the privilege to play. We get the privilege to play the number one team in the nation. And guess what? No one gives us a chance. No one thinks we'll win the game. Not one person across the entire United States. But here's the thing. They got to go prove it. They're in our backyard. You never know when that ball is going to bounce in your lap. This may be the day. They hadn't turned the ball over in the last 9 games or 8 games. They hadn't turned it over. Guess what? They're in Fayetteville, Arkansas. That ball may bounce funny. Be ready. Be ready. Ball might just pop out of Najee Harris's hands. We might scoop and score. Be ready. Be ready, kickoff team. That may be the play. That may be the play where you put the helmet on the ball and we turn it. And don't be afraid. Let it go. Let it go. They're supposed to win. Pressure's on them. They're the number one team. Let them have the pressure. We're going to have fun playing the funnest and the best game in the world. Play for your teammates. Play for one another. Don't worry about anything. Turn it loose. And don't be surprised in the fourth quarter if we're 3 up, 3 down, 6 up, or 6 down. Don't be surprised. We'll shock the world. And so to me, that would be the mindset of just trying to, hey, we're going to loosen them up. And we're not going to worry about anything. We're going to do our best. We know they're good. Hey, we respect them. But they got to prove it.
Coach, I'm
ready to go.
I think I'm
ready.
I think you just changed the mindset of every fan listening and their expectation for the game tomorrow. We got to end it there. It's not going to get much better than that. Coach Houston Nutt, former Arkansas Ridgeback head coach, now CBS college football analyst. Coach, we really appreciate your time this morning. Love hearing those motivational speeches, whether past or present, and enjoy the games this weekend, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. And, hey, Clay, I wanted to say that, always that Hogs Illustrated, you'd be surprised of how many times the players, the mothers in the living rooms, I'd go in and that Hogs Illustrated would be there. They always love, of course, seeing their picture on that magazine or the stories inside of that. So that was always a big recruiting deal when you had a Hogs Illustrated. So I always appreciated your work.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you.
All right, guys.